Chapter 70. The 100 Beasts Forest was very, very big. It was located in the middle of a mountain range, extending all the way into the depths of the mountain range. It would take at least 3 days to pass through the 100 Beasts Forest. They set off in the morning, and it was already noon. Li Fuchen wasn't in a hurry to continue on his journey. Instead, he took a short break and ate some rations. No one would be able to endure 3 days of non-stop travel. Rather than that, they would naturally rest when it was time to do so, and try their best to maintain their peak condition. After resting for 1 hour, Li Fuchen continued his journey. If a peerless expert were to float above the 100 Beasts Forest and use his powerful consciousness to scan the area, he would discover that the 10,000-plus outer sect disciples were divided into a dozen or so groups. The first batch consisted of Yuan Tian and the rest. They had left the second batch far behind. As Li Fuchen had rested for 1 hour, he was in the 10th batch. As for the 10th batch and beyond, they were just some shrimp soldiers and crab generals. They were completely there to make up the numbers, and they also realized that their strength was low, so they didn't go all out. 1 hour later, Li Fuchen passed the 9th batch. Another 1 hour later, Li Fuchen surpassed the 8th batch of people. Just as Li Fuchen was about to catch up to the 7th group, over 100 people surrounded Li Fuchen. The people in the lead were the 7 experts under Fang Lihai. Nieming spoke slowly. Li Fuchen, I know you are very strong. Among us, none of us can withstand a single move from you. But with the strength of 100 of us, even if you are an immortal, you will not be able to pass through. Li Fuchen stood on a tree branch that was a few meters above the ground, looking down at them. Seems like all of you have given up on the stage. That's right. Only 20 people can pass the trial. In any case, we have no hope, Cui Tai said calmly. Li Fuchen replied, I don't understand. What benefits did Fang Lihai give you to make you work so hard? If Li Fuchen didn't have the strength, it wasn't a big deal to offend him. But Li Fuchen had already displayed horrific strength, and these people still dared to do this. There must be a reason. Mei Ruolong said, you don't need to know this. Actually, the reason they followed Fang Lihai was for the future. As one of the heavens chosen, Fang Lihai would definitely be able to reach the Heaven Star Border realm in the future. Following a Heaven Star Border realm cultivator would bring great benefits to both his family and himself. As for Li Fuchen, it didn't matter if they offended him. Li Fuchen was just a normal bone frame and could at most reach the Earth realm. He couldn't be compared to prodigies. Li Fuchen, I advise you to stay here and not force us to make a move. That's right. With the strength of more than 100 of us, even if you were made of iron, you would still be severely injured on the spot. You are a wise man. You know how to choose. Fang Lihai's underlings shouted. Li Fuchen chuckled. No matter how many wolves there are, how can they compare with a divine dragon? All of you aren't qualified. Finished speaking, Li Fuchen jumped down from the tree, flashed and rushed forward. Stop him. Beat him to death one by one. His body's defense is very strong anyway. Don't worry about killing him. Cui Tai shouted. More than 100 outer sect disciples of the 8th and 9th level of the Qi realm intercepted a single person. It was a grand sight, like a tidal wave. A mantis trying to block a chariot. Li Fuchen let out a disdainful laugh and opened up his arms. Like an eagle spreading its wings, he dived towards the oncoming crowd. Pung, 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 pung. A horrifying scene happened. The tidal wave of disciples couldn't stop Li Fuchen's momentum. They were all knocked away and sent flying, spitting out fresh blood and broken bones. Since you have decided to offend me, then be prepared to offend me. Li Fuchen's speed was too fast. Wherever there were more people, he would rush. Wherever he went, people would be thrown off their feet and blood would mix together. Li Fuchen, don't you dare be presumptuous. With Cui Tai as the leader, the 7 experts worked together to attack Li Fuchen. Their sword shadows were like an inescapable net, impenetrable. Get lost. With a spin, Li Fuchen executed the Cyclone Kick style's Tornado Cloud Remnant. Dense shadows of his kicks shot out in all directions. Pivif, 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 pivif. The 7 experts spat out blood as they retreated, overwhelmed with shock. Too strong. Li Fuchen's ability could no longer be described as the Qi realm. Even a low-level origin realm martial artist wouldn't be this insane. It wasn't that low-level origin realm martial artists weren't strong enough. It was mainly because the physical defense of a low-level origin realm martial artist was far inferior to Li Fuchen. In that instant, Li Fuchen executed a dozen kicks, but also suffered a dozen swords. Li Fuchen was unscathed, but they spat out blood and retreated. His defense is even stronger, almost twice as strong. Cui Tai took in a deep cold breath. I don't believe he can withstand so many attacks. The one who spoke was Mei Ruolong. He was shocked and angry at the same time. No matter what body refinement technique, after receiving countless attacks, one's blood would boil. Just like a rock, a hammer might not be able to smash it, but after being smashed many times, even the hardest rock would shatter. Those who can still stand, like Mei Ruolong bellowed. With the sound of the wind, a dense group of figures rushed at Li Fuchen in waves. Li Fuchen's expression turned cold. Since you don't know what's good for you, then don't blame me. A domineering and blazing Qi presence was emitted from Li Fuchen's body. Li Fuchen's figure flashed and his kicks poured down like a torrential rain. His kicks were as fierce as a violent gale. Those who got hit had their bones shattered and fainted on the spot. Previously, Li Fuchen was still controlling his strength. Even though he didn't use his full strength, but he increased his strength to the point where it could instantly inflict serious injuries. It was normal for him to accidentally kill someone, but he couldn't be blamed. Anyone else would be enraged after being surrounded by hundreds of people. He believed that even if he killed someone, the sect wouldn't blame him. In a chaotic battle, who could hold back? With a kick on Mei Ruolong's shoulder immediately collapsed. With a flash, Li Fuchen kicked Nieming's waist, causing him to fall to the ground and bleeding from his 7 orifices. Enough, everyone stop. The outer sect deacons who were hiding in the shadows couldn't bear to watch any longer and rushed out. They were worried that if this carried on, Li Fuchen would kill a few of them. Cui Tai saw his men getting beaten up so badly, his eyes turned red and rushed at Li Fuchen without a care in the world. Courting death. An outer sect deacon's eyes flashed with a cold light. With a palm strike, he sent Cui Tai flying while vomiting blood. Cui Tai's body slid down a tree. Go. Leave this to us. The leader of the outer sect deacons said to Li Fuchen. Taking a deep breath, Li Fuchen tried his best to suppress his growing killing intent and said in a low voice, "Many thanks." Finishing his sentence, he turned and left. What a fiend! A shadow flashed, and an outer sect elder appeared. Elder. All the outer sect deacons bowed their heads. The outer sect elder waved his hand and said, "This child's ability is outstanding and ruthless. Luckily this is the sect. Had it been outside, not more than half of these people would still be alive. 1 against 100. Within the outer sect, there aren't many who can do it." Chapter 71. After a while, Li Fuchen's murderous aura completely dissipated. If my defense wasn't strong enough, even if my strength was twice as strong, I'm afraid I would still be lying there. This encounter had strengthened Li Fuchen's determination to walk on the path of body refinement. The path of martial arts was extremely dangerous. Now that Li Fuchen was an outer sect disciple, he didn't have to go out for missions. After becoming an inner sect disciple, they would need to complete at least 1 sect mission every year. During the mission, it would be fine if everything went smoothly, but if it didn't, it would be very easy to encounter danger. There were many kinds of dangers, and some of them couldn't be dealt with just because you were strong. For example, in the situation just now, it was impossible to not have any defense. No matter how powerful one was, as long as one was hit, one would still be injured. Once one was injured, one's condition would decline, and the further one went, the harder it would be for one to hold on. The 6th batch. The 5th batch. When evening came, Li Fuchen overtook the 5th group and was now in the same camp as the 4th group. Of course, Li Fuchen didn't know. Running in the increasingly gloomy forest, Li Fuchen's ears suddenly twitched and heard a voice that didn't belong to him. Voila! The bushes on the side parted, and an exceptionally ferocious blood-red demon beast rushed out. It was a blood-bone leopard. No, the blood-boned leopard wasn't that ferocious, and its eyes weren't purplish-red, but red. Could it be a mutated demon beast? Li Fuchen thought to himself. Demonic beasts were different from humans. Their bloodlines were very heterogeneous. For example, a leopard demonic beast might contain the bloodlines of dozens of different demonic beasts. Therefore, if a demonic beast wanted to become stronger, there were only two paths. One was mutation, and the other was evolution. Mutation was the fusion of bloodlines, producing a new bloodline. Evolution, on the other hand, was to choose a stronger bloodline and purify one's own bloodline. It was obvious that this was a mutated blood-boned leopard, and its strength was several times stronger than an ordinary blood-boned leopard. The mutated blood-boned leopard arched its back and shot towards Li Fuchen. With a flash, Li Fuchen dodged the attack of the mutated blood-boned leopard. The blood-boned leopard was a Class 1 high-tier demonic beast, and its speed was already extremely fast. The mutated blood-boned leopard's speed increased by at least 2 folds. Even Li Fuchen would find it hard to dodge. If it were anyone else, they would definitely be killed instantly. It could be said that this was an accident. And accidents could easily lead to death. Missing its first strike, the mutated blood-boned leopard used its front limbs to support itself on the ground. Raising its long tail, it swept at Li Fuchen like a rod. Bang! Finally, Li Fuchen couldn't dodge and could only use his left arm to block. The body flew out horizontally, and Li Fuchen was shocked. Even with his current strength, he still suffered a loss at the hands of the mutated blood-skeletal leopard. Fortunately, the mutated blood-boned leopard's forte was its speed, but it lacked in strength. Li Fuchen's left arm merely felt numb and didn't suffer any damage. While in mid-air, Li Fuchen drew his wooden sword. The moment he landed, he cleaved at the mutated blood-boned leopard. Clang! The mutated skeletal blood leopard was the same as the skeletal blood leopard. However, the blood-boned leopard's bones were blood-red in color, while the mutated blood-boned leopard's bones were purplish-red in color. The wooden sword struck the purplish-red blood bone, instantly shattering the blood bone. Streams of purplish-red blood sputtered out. Die! Cleaving apart the mutated blood-boned leopard, Li Fuchen gripped his sword with both hands and with a burst of speed, he thrust it into the throat of the mutated blood-boned leopard. Death of the Red Jade. Withdrawing the sword, the mutated blood-boned leopard slumped to the ground without any signs of life. Even if the mutated blood-boned leopard's ability isn't that far off from a Class 1 demon. Among the mutated life forms, demons were the rulers. A Class 1 demon's physical strength was around 10,000 kilograms. Complemented with the demonic chi that reeked of blood, it was an invincible existence amongst Class 1 demons. There was once a Class 1 demon that appeared in the vicinity of Yunwu City. It took a dozen Origin Realm martial artists to kill it. The materials from the mutated blood-boned leopard were valuable, but the most valuable was the demon core within its body. Most mutated demonic beasts had a demon core within their bodies. Slicing open the mutated blood-boned leopard's body, Li Fuchen searched carefully and found a purplish-red crystal within. A Class 1 high-tier demon core was worth around 1,000 gold coins. A Class 1 high-tier mutated demon core was worth around 5,000 gold coins. In the sect, I don't lack contribution points, but I do lack gold coins. Wiping off the bloodstains on the demon core, Li Fuchen kept it in his pocket. The sky gradually darkened. Within the 100 Beasts forest, the demonic chi was getting more and more horrifying. Strange noises could be heard from all directions. Many of the outer sect disciples who wanted to rest were frightened and didn't dare to do so. Just like that, the night passed. After a day and night of traveling, everyone was exhausted. While others were exhausted, Li Fuchen was full of energy and maintained a high speed on his journey. In the morning, Li Fuchen finally arrived at the front lines. Feng Lihai, I hope you don't meet me. As Li Fuchen traveled, he scanned his surroundings. Feng Lihai sent men to obstruct his path. If he didn't take revenge, he would be too useless. Swish! Passing through a relatively dense forest, Li Fuchen saw a graceful figure. It was Wu Qingmei. Li Fuchen. Wu Qingmei approached. Li Fuchen asked, "Have you seen Fong Lihai?" Wu Qingmei shook her head. "Nope." "Many thanks, I shall make a move first." Li Fuchen increased his speed and soon left behind Wu Qingmei, whose mental state was on the decline. Looking at Li Fuchen's departing back, Wu Qingmei had a strange look in her eyes. The Li Fuchen that she didn't think much of at first was now one of the outer sect's most influential figures. Some even compared him to Yuan Tian. With his valiant physical strength, Li Fuchen was full of energy. At noon, Li Fuchen didn't rest and continued on his journey. But other than Wu Qingmei, he didn't see anyone else in the top 20 of the Tower of Tribulations. He reckoned that the others didn't take the same route as him. Since the 100 Beasts forest was huge, it was impossible for everyone to take the same route. On the evening of the second day, Li Fuchen coincidentally met Gao Changtian. Gao Changtian was surprised. "I thought you were ahead of me?" Towards Li Fuchen, his heart was filled with emotions. Who would have thought that a normal bone-frame disciple could explode with such strength? Even he couldn't injure Qing Xiaoyu with a single punch. "Have you seen Fong Lihai?" Li Fuchen asked. He should have chosen another route. "Why are you looking for him?" "To settle a personal grudge with him." Li Fuchen didn't elaborate further. Gao Changtian thought for a moment and said, "The deeper you go into the 100 Beasts forest, the narrower the entrance. You might just meet him up ahead." "Is that so? Many thanks." Finishing his sentence, Li Fuchen gradually pulled away from Gao Changtian. Gao Changtian let out a bitter laugh. For this type of long-distance running, those with a strong physique would have the absolute advantage. His physical strength wasn't weak. After cultivating the 7-star forged body to completion, he chose a low-tier, mystic-class body refinement technique, the Celestial Cloud Battle Body. Chapter 72. On the third morning, Li Fuchen found Fong Lihai in front of a small stream. "Fong Lihai." "Li Fuchen." The two of them looked at each other from a distance. Under the influence of their qi, a gust of wind blew over and blew up dozens of fallen leaves. "They actually caught up to me, seems like they failed." Fong Lihai spoke with some regret. Li Fuchen replied coldly, "You are a prodigy, yet you resort to such underhanded methods. You have really opened my eyes." Fong Lihai grinned. "In the 100 Beasts forest, there are no other rules except killing. I am just using my advantages to my advantage." Li Fuchen didn't intend to reason with his opponent. He revolved his qi and spoke slowly, "I wonder if the heavily injured you can still be in the top 20. Li Fuchen, do you think I am still the same as I was half a year ago? Now, I'll let you see what level my strength has reached." Fong Lihai's qi presence exploded as the fallen leaves flew into the sky. With a loud roar, Fong Lihai rushed at Li Fuchen like an arrow and sent a punch over. After half a year of cultivation, Fong Lihai's iron armor art had already reached the pinnacle of the 9th level. Circulating his Zhenqi, he was able to cover his entire body in an instant. Especially the Zhenqi on his fists, it was a level denser than before. Apart from that, his iron dipper form was also at the 3rd rank, giving him a physical strength of 7,000 kilograms. There is an improvement, but it is still too little. Fong Lihai had a huge improvement, but Li Fuchen had an even bigger improvement. Stepping forward with his left leg, Li Fuchen's fist collided with Fong Lihai's. Crack! The sound of bones cracking could be heard. Fong Lihai was sent flying as though he was struck by lightning. He fell into the stream like a drowned rat. "Fong Lihai, we originally didn't have any grudges between us. But you didn't know when to back off. This is your outcome." Li Fuchen didn't intend to let Fong Lihai off so easily and walked over step by step. "Impossible, this is impossible." The stinging pain on his fist caused Fong Lihai's face to turn pale. He looked at the approaching Li Fuchen with fear and screamed out. He couldn't be blamed for panicking. Li Fuchen's performance was just too bizarre. Half a year ago, he was still able to fight with Li Fuchen for a long time. Half a year later, he actually couldn't even withstand a single fist from Li Fuchen. How could he accept this? It was as if you were originally only slightly weaker than your opponent, But after a period of time, your strength had greatly improved and you wanted to take revenge, but you were instantly killed by your opponent. No one could stand the sharp contrast. Seeing that Li Fuchen was right in front of him, Fang Lihai was frightened. He leapt up and frantically escaped, splashing water everywhere. But Li Fuchen's speed was even faster than him. An afterimage appeared as Li Fuchen caught up to Fang Lihai. No. Fang Lihai roared with rage. His uninjured left hand drew his wooden sword and turned around to face Li Fuchen. Bang! With a kick, Li Fuchen sent Fang Lihai flying a dozen meters away. Then, he once again walked towards Fang Lihai. Fang Lihai was on the verge of collapse. His eyes were filled with hatred and fear. Little bastard, scram. All of a sudden, a figure assaulted Li Fuchen with ghostly speed. Li Fuchen quickly countered with a punch. Spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood, Li Fuchen was sent flying and crashed into a tree, splitting it into two. Origin Realm Martial Artist. The attacker was an Origin Realm Martial Artist. If not, Li Fuchen wouldn't have been able to withstand a single blow. Looking up, Li Fuchen saw a buff-looking man wearing an outer sect deacon attire standing at the side of the stream, staring at him with a cold gaze. With 10,000 kilograms of physical strength, Li Fuchen's physical defense was extremely tough. Complemented with his scarlet fire chi, he could withstand close to 20,000 kilograms of force. What's more, he didn't take the blow head-on, but used his fist to receive the blow. Which was why he only suffered some light injuries. As an outer sect deacon, to interfere in the competition, isn't that too much? Suppressing his boiling blood, Li Fuchen stood up and spoke in a low voice. The buff-looking man replied, "So vicious at such a young age. Didn't your parents teach you manners?" "Don't change the topic. I want to ask, did you get the approval of the outer sect Grand Elder for interfering in the competition?" Li Fuchen continued to question. After helping Fang Lihai up, the muscular man still didn't answer his question. He said indifferently, "If I wanted to kill you, I wouldn't have used 10% of my strength. I would have used 100% of my strength. You should be glad that I showed mercy." He was a member of the Fang clan and in terms of seniority, he was Fang Lihai's uncle. Since the start of the competition, he followed behind Fang Lihai to ensure his safety. When Fang Lihai fought with Li Fuchen, he thought Fang Lihai would be able to handle it with his ability. He didn't expect Fang Lihai to be defeated in a single punch. If Li Fuchen had stopped, he wouldn't have made a move. But Li Fuchen was too vicious and he had no choice but to teach Li Fuchen a lesson. What a show of mercy. I will report this matter to the outer sect First Elder. Li Fuchen spoke in a gloomy tone. Kid, don't go overboard. If not, you won't be able to bear the consequences. The buff-looking man had a murderous intent. Do you want to silence me? Li Fuchen seemed to have sensed something and replied calmly. If you want to die, I can grant your wish. Circulating his chi, the buff-looking man bent his knees, ready to launch a fatal attack at any moment. Fang Dai, what are you trying to do? A loud shout caused the water in the stream to jump up and the dancing leaves to dust. Elder Chiu. The buff-looking man turned around with an unpleasant expression and looked at the elder on the tree branch. The elder was wearing an outer sect elder attire and spoke coldly. During the outer sect disciple competition, you openly interfered with the competition. What punishment do you deserve? Fang Dai quickly replied, Elder Chiu, Fang Dai was just joking. I hope Elder Chiu can forgive me. Joking? Is there a need to joke like this? Elder Chiu's expression calmed down. When you return, apologize to Elder Xiao yourself. Fang Dai lowered his head and replied. Shifting his gaze to Li Fuchen, Elder Chiu said, Li Fuchen, don't worry. The outer sect Grand Elder will handle this matter. Many thanks, Elder Chiu. Li Fuchen's expression was respectful, but his heart was ice cold. Seeing Elder Chiu's attitude, it seemed like he didn't want to pursue Fang Dai's crime. Thinking back to the fact that Fang Dai and Fang Lihai were backed by the Shanghai City's City Lord, and that the Shanghai City's City Lord wasn't just any city lord, but one of the main cities. His status was comparable to an inner sect elder. Li Fuchen knew that this matter would most likely be left unsettled. Waiting for Li Fuchen to leave, Elder Qiu threw a pill to Fang De. This bone-altering pill can speed up the healing of his bones. Finishing his statement, Elder Qiu's figure flashed and vanished without a trace. Uncle De, how will the outer sect Grand Elder punish you? Fang Lihai asked with concern. Fang De laughed. Don't worry, the punishment won't be too severe. After all, your father is the Shanghai City's city lord and is on good terms with many of the inner sect elders. If not, Elder Qiu wouldn't have given you the bone-altering pill. That's good. Fang Lihai let out a breath of relief and felt a sense of pride in his heart. Chapter 73. With the Fang family's status, the outer sect Grand Elder probably won't do anything to Fang De. At most, he will punish him. Li Fuchen wasn't happy, but he wasn't too agitated. This was how the world worked. You either had strength or background. There were countless cities in the Zhanglan region, but there weren't many main cities. If a regular city's city lord was equivalent to an outer sect elder, then a main city's city lord would be equivalent to an inner sect elder. Their status and prestige were definitely top-notch in the Zhanglan region. If I want to establish myself in the Azure Water sect, I need to display my worth and not be too low profile. At this moment, Li Fuchen decided that in the following years, he would burst out with his own brilliance and become the focus of the sect's nurturing. As such, anyone who wanted to deal with him would have to think twice before acting. Take Yuan Tian for example. If Fang De dared to do anything to him, he would most likely be sentenced to death by the sect. Even the city lord of the main city would not dare to plead on his behalf. Anyone who faced a sect was extremely weak. Above the inner sect elders were the protectors and grand elders, as well as the supreme sect leader. In the gloomy forest, Li Fuchen was bouncing like a star. His speed was even faster than 2 days ago. A bat-like demonic beast attacked and was split in half by Li Fuchen's sword. A silver-patterned tiger that was hiding in the bushes scurried out and was trampled into the mud by Li Fuchen, crushing all its bones. An iron rhinoceros with a strong defense came at him. After getting kicked by Li Fuchen 3 to 4 times, half of its body collapsed. After a bloody journey, Li Fuchen finally saw the end of the 100 Beasts forest. Someone was already waiting at the end. As expected by Li Fuchen, it was Yuan Tian. Seeing Li Fuchen, Yuan Tian was a little surprised, but just nodded lightly and didn't say anything. Not bad, this kid is actually the second person to pass through the 100 Beasts forest, even faster than Shang Guanhong. The outer sect elders nodded their heads in approval. It seems like I have underestimated him. Chen Zongming was also in the crowd. When he saw Li Fuchen, his pupils involuntarily shrank. Being the second person to clear the 100 Beasts forest did not mean that he was the second strongest, but his strength was at least in the top 10 or 20. Not to mention a normal bone frame, even a 3-star bone frame couldn't do it. But Li Fuchen did it. An hour later, Shang Guanhong came out. Looking at Yuan Tian, Shang Guanhong had a look of hatred. But when he saw Li Fuchen, his expression completely changed. He could understand why Yuan Tian could get first place. Whether he admitted it or not, Yuan Tian was stronger than him. But who was Li Fuchen to actually be the second to pass the 100 Beasts forest? Damn it, how can I be ranked third? He must have been lucky and didn't encounter any demonic beasts along the way. Shang Guanhong concluded that Li Fuchen relied on his luck to be ranked ahead of him. Brushing past Li Fuchen, Shang Guanhong snorted with a look of disdain. The fourth to arrive was a slightly plump youth called Hong Feng. Even though he wasn't one of the outer sect's top 10 geniuses, he was 1 or 2 years older. He was 18 years old this year and was ranked third in the Tower of Trials. The fifth was Gao Changtian. He was supposed to be behind Fang Lihai, but Fang Lihai was beaten up by Li Fuchen and needed some time to recuperate. The sixth was Sun Jun, one of the outer sect's top 10 prodigies. The seventh was one of the outer sect's 4 great beauties, Zhao Mingyue. If Guan Shui was cold, Wu Qingmei was bright, Zhu Hongxiu was beautiful, and Zhao Mingyue was stunning. In terms of aura, Zhao Mingyue was a notch above the other 3. No wonder she is the granddaughter of the inner sect Grand Elder. Li Fuchen praised in his heart. Zhao Mingyue had an esteemed status and was the granddaughter of the inner sect Grand Elder. Compared to Zhao Mingyue, Fang Laihai, who was the young city lord of Shanghai City, paled in comparison. Seeing Zhao Mingyue, be it Yuan Tian, Shang Guanhong, Hong Feng, or Sun Jun, their eyes lit up with a faint desire. Not only was Zhao Mingyue beautiful, her talent and background were also top-notch. Who wouldn't want to be her partner? A pity that Zhao Mingyue had high standards. There were rumors that Yuan Tian pursued Zhao Mingyue, but was rejected by her. The eighth to pass the 100 Beasts Forest was Guan Shui. Like an elegant shadow, Guan Shui's appearance made the end of the 100 Beasts Forest a beautiful sight. She and Zhao Mingyue each had their own beauty. The ninth was another one of the 10 prodigies. The 10th was Wu Qingmei. The slightly fatigued Wu Qingmei didn't lose any of her charm, but instead became even more alluring, causing Yuan Tian's heart to burn with passion. In contrast to Yuan Tian, Shang Guanhong had a face of unwillingness and anger. Only after the 14th person did Fang Laihai appear. He viciously stared at Li Fuchen. If looks could kill, Li Fuchen would have died dozens of times over. Among the crowd, which one of them wasn't a shrewd person with sharp eyes? They could feel that Fang Laihai seemed to hate Li Fuchen. But they didn't know what happened between the two in the 100 Beasts Forest. The 16th, the 18th, the 20th. Finally, there were 20 people who passed the 100 Beasts Forest. Very good. To be able to pass the 100 Beasts Forest so quickly, it means that your abilities are not bad. The tournament will start in 3 days. During this period of time, prepare well and be in peak condition for the tournament. Xiao Changfeng had a face of anticipation. 3 days later, Zhonglan Sect Outer Sect Disciple Region. There was a giant martial arts stage here, with enough spectators stands to hold tens of thousands of people. I heard that this year's Outer Sect Disciple Tournament is extremely strong, almost on par with Sword Maniac Xixiang's batch. I wonder if it is true. It must be an exaggeration. This year's Outer Sect Disciple Tournament has Yuan Tian, who is a 5-star bone frame. But the previous tournament also had Dominion Sword Xixiang. Whether it is true or not, we will know once we see it. The 100 Beasts Forest stage should be over, right? In the spectator stands, there were plenty of inner sect disciples who came to spectate. They were all promoted to inner sect disciples in the recent years and paid more attention to the outer sect. Apart from them, a majority of the outer sect disciples came too and sat at the back. Look, Yunjian Xixiang is here. He became an inner sect disciple 2 years ago and reached the 3rd level of the origin realm in just 2 short years. That's normal. Yunjian Xixiang was an outer sect prodigy. How can we compare? Mei Jian Shiji is here too. Strange, she is only at the 5th level of the origin realm. Why would she be interested in the outer sect disciple tournament? Maybe she has a relative in this year's outer sect disciple tournament. The inner sect disciples in the front row would glance at the spectator stands from time to time. Once they spotted a famous person, they would immediately start a discussion. As for Yunjian Xixiang and Mei Jian Xixiang, Yunjian and Mei Jian were just titles. Only outstanding individuals would have titles. Those who made a name for themselves in the outside world would also have their own titles. Just as the crowd was in a heated discussion, a 1.9-meter-tall, muscular youth walked in from the entrance. He was rather tall and had an imposing aura. He was obviously at the bottom, but he was like a mountain towering in front of the inner sect disciples, unreachable. It's Dominion Sword Xixiang. Chapter 74. So many people. As soon as Li Fuchen entered the martial stage, he was shocked by the dense crowd of spectators. Yunwu City stage could only hold a few thousand people, but the Zhonglan Sect's outer sect stage could hold tens of thousands of people. As the saying goes, if there were tens of thousands of people, it would be a spectacular sight. All of you go up and draw your lots. Xiao Changfeng said to the 20 participants of the tournament. Yes. Li Fuchen and the rest walked up the stage and reached into the box to draw a lot. Li Fuchen got lot 3. Even though the outer sect disciple tournament was a grand event, there wasn't any complicated procedures. No one went up on stage to speak either. The inner sect elders and other upper echelons sat on the rostrum and nodded at Xiao Changfeng, indicating the start of the tournament. When the tournament started, the first two contestants who drew Lot 1 went up on stage. They were Guan Shui and Wu Qingmei. Boom! Once the two of them went up on stage, the spectators were in an uproar. Especially those inner sect disciples, many of the male disciples even whistled. Guan Shui shimmy, I will not go easy on you. Wu Qingmei drew her wooden sword and gave a sweet smile. Guan Shui replied with an emotionless face, I don't need you to go easy. Be careful. Carrying her wooden sword, Wu Qingmei's body floated. Layers of sword shadows fell on Guan Shui with increasing speed. Peak tier, yellow class sword art, violent wind quick sword. Guan Shui raised her arm and with a flick, layers of sword flowers resembled plum blossoms, blocking Wu Qingmei's violent wind quick sword. Peak tier, yellow class sword art, plum blossom sword style dang 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 dang. Their movements were graceful, like butterflies flying through flowers, pleasing to the eye. But their attacks were merciless. Each sword was filled with killing intent, merciless and swift. Wu Qingmei's cultivation level and technique rank are slightly higher, but Guan Shui's physical fitness is superior. Below the stage, Li Fuchen observed the battle between the two. He could see that Wu Qingmei's physical strength was weaker than Guan Shui's and was at a disadvantage in this aspect. But in other words, Wu Qingmei entered the Zhanglan sect earlier than Guan Shui and cultivated longer than Guan Shui. This was Guan Shui's disadvantage. After 100 moves, Wu Qingmei was the first to execute her killer move. 100 changes of gale. Wu Qingmei's frenzied wind-fast sword was already at great accomplishment realm. Once the killer move was used, the dense sword force was like 100 arrows shooting out at the same time. Those with weaker sword path cultivation would be full of openings when facing this move. 1,000 plum blossoms. Unfortunately, Guan Shui's talent in the way of the sword seemed to be above Wu Qingmei's. As soon as she displayed her sword technique, sword flowers blossomed like plum blossoms, instantly spreading out and dispersing Wu Qingmei's killer move. He outshines others. Without waiting for Wu Qingmei to change her move, Guan Shui's sword momentum changed, from the last move to the first move of the plum blossom sword style. The plum blossoms vanished, and Guan Shui's sword pressed against Wu Qingmei's throat. You lost, Guan Shui said lightly. Wu Qingmei was a little disappointed. Junior apprentice sister Guan Shui has good sword skills. If it wasn't for the fact that her physical strength was slightly weaker than Guan Shui's and her agility wasn't as great as Guan Shui's, she might not have lost to Guan Shui. However, she had to admit that Guan Shui's talent in the way of the sword was higher than hers, and Guan Shui's comprehension of the way of the sword was deeper than hers. What a good plum blossom sword art! In the spectator stands, a snow-white female inner sect disciple raised an eyebrow. She was the plum sword that everyone was talking about, plum sword, Qinfanghua. She was given the title of plum sword because her sword style was related to the plum blossom. When she was an outer sect disciple, she cultivated the plum blossom sword style. After becoming an inner sect disciple, she cultivated the myriad blossom sword style. Which was why she paid extra attention to Guan Shui, who cultivated the plum blossom sword style. The violent wind quick sword isn't bad, but it is a pity that her adaptability is lacking. Cloud sword, Lu Qinhe commented on Wu Qingmei's sword style. As the match between Guan Shui and Wu Qingmei ended, the contestants who drew lot number 2 went on stage. They were Hong Feng and Shang Guanhong. Shang Guanhong won. Lot number 3, come on stage. The referee announced loudly. It's my turn. Li Fuchen's body flashed and jumped onto the stage. On the opposite side, a figure instantly went on stage. Taking a closer look, it was one of the 10 prodigies of the outer sect. Sun Jun heard of Li Fuchen's infamous name and was cursing his bad luck. Among the 19 contestants, there were only 3 or 4 that he didn't want to meet. But Li Fuchen was one of them. Severely injuring Qing Xiaoyu with a single punch, Sun Jun didn't think he could do it. However, it was impossible for him to admit defeat. He was very confident in his own sword Dao cultivation. Li Fuchen, take this. Sun Jun made the first move. With a flash of his sword, like a venomous snake, The speed of his sword was extremely fast. Peak tier, yellow class sword art, snake eye sword style. Cool breeze sword style. The trance stage cool breeze sword style in the hands of Li Fuchen had the ability to turn something rotten into something magical. It was just a single blade, but Sun Jun felt as though Li Fuchen executed at least 20 blades. Every blade could be real and every blade could be fatal. Dang 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 dang. Sun Jun made the first move, but he was the first to retreat. He had no choice but to retreat. If he didn't, he would be instantly defeated. I have to defeat my opponent in terms of sword skills. Li Fuchen didn't use his physical strength to his advantage. Since he wanted to burst forth with his own brilliance, he had to first let others see his sword Dao cultivation. After a dozen moves, Li Fuchen broke Sun Jun's snake eye sword style. You are strong, I can see defeat. Sun Jun laughed bitterly. He thought his sword skills were strong, but Li Fuchen's sword skills were even stronger. Every move and stance was executed according to Li Fuchen's will, like a heavenly steed soaring through the sky. Sun Jun couldn't even keep up with Li Fuchen's rhythm. Thanks for letting me win. Li Fuchen cupped his fist. The one who drew the number 4 lot was Yuan Tian. With just a single blade he defeated his opponent. With his dominating ability, he had a lot of support. Everyone had already determined that he would be the champion of this year's Outer Sect Disciple Tournament and no one could stop him. The fifth to go up was Zhao Mingyue and Fang Lihai. Fang Lihai's ability was strong, but Zhao Mingyue was even stronger. When the Raging Wave Sword style met the Bright Moon Sword style, it was as though it met its nemesis. Once the killer move, Bright Moon over the Sea, was executed, Fang Lihai vomited blood and fell off the stage. Mingyue Shimi is indeed the Grand Elder's granddaughter. Her talent is incredible. In the Outer Sect, other than Yuan Tian, the only one who can match up to Mingyue Shimi is probably Shang Guanhong. Shang Guanhong is Elder Shangguan's grandson. His talent is also incredible. Next up, Gao Changtian went up against Qin Xiaoyu. Gao Changtian won. Soon enough, after the first round of matches, the top 10 were decided. The top 10 represented the top 10 Outer Sect disciples and were rewarded with large amounts of contribution points. First place would be rewarded with 100,000 points, second and third place would be rewarded with 80,000 points, fourth and fifth place would be rewarded with 60,000 points, and 5th to 10th place would be rewarded with 30,000 points. It could be said that in the Tsanglan sect, only disciples would receive the best treatment. Outer sect elders might have a high status, but in terms of earning points, they might not be able to match up to Tsanglan sect disciples. The main reason was because disciples often received rewards. Cultivation techniques that were cultivated quickly would be rewarded. Placing in the tournament would also be rewarded. Chapter 75. Outer Sect Top 10 Disciples, damn it. Guan Peng was among the audience. Back in Cloud Mist City, he looked down on Li Fuchen. During the Genius Contest, he might have been defeated by Li Fuchen. But he still looked down on Li Fuchen and thought he was just a normal bone frame with no potential. Now that Li Fuchen became one of the top 10 Outer Sect disciples, Guan Peng wavered. He didn't know if he still had the confidence to despise Li Fuchen. I will not bother with you for now. Once I break through to the Origin Realm, I will definitely catch up to you. Guan Peng clenched his fist tightly. In the front row of the audience, Guan Hong and Guan Yen sat side by side. After a year, Guan Hong had advanced to the 2nd level of the Origin Realm while Guan Yen had advanced to the 3rd level of the Origin Realm. Advancing one stage in over a year was considered average in the inner sect. A mere disciple of the Li clan can actually become one of the top 10 Outer Sect disciples. Unforgivable. Guan Hong frowned, his expression extremely displeased. Guan Yen snorted, it's just temporary glory. With his bone frame, it's impossible for him to advance to the Origin Realm before 18 years old. The lower the star grade of the bone frame, the longer one would be stuck at the peak of the 9th level of the Qi realm. And this was only the first hurdle. Once one reached the peak of the 9th level of the Origin Realm, it was normal to be stuck for 10 to 20 years. After the top 10 were decided, it was time to decide the top 5. It was still drawing lots, and Li Fuchen drew lot number 4. Lot number 1, Yuan Tian versus Gao Changtian. Even though Gao Changtian had tried his best, the gap between him and Yuan Tian was too big. Whether it was physical strength, cultivation, skill level, sword skill level, he was weaker than Yuan Tian in every aspect. Gao Changtian was defeated in 2 moves. Yuan Tian is too strong. Everyone secretly exclaimed. Lot number 2, Zhao Mingyue won. The third lot, Shang Guanhong versus Guan Shui. Shang Guanhong was 17 this year. She had cultivated for 2 more years than Guan Shui. With these 2 years, Shang Guanhong defeated Guan Shui without any mishaps. Lot 4, Li Fuchen also defeated his opponent with ease. With the end of the 5th round, the top 5 were born. They were Yuan Tian, Zhao Mingyue, Shang Guanhong, Li Fuchen, and one of the 10 prodigies called Chao Yun. 2-on-1 duel. The first match was between Yuan Tian and Chao Yun. Second match, Li Fuchen against Zhao Mingyue. Shang Guanhong had a bye. There was no suspense in the first match. Yuan Tian easily won. In the second match, Li Fuchen and Zhao Mingyue immediately engaged in an intense battle. Zhao Mingyue was much stronger than what everyone had imagined. As soon as they exchanged moves, Li Fuchen could feel that Zhao Mingyue's foundation was extremely terrifying. This fear did not originate from his physical strength, but from his Zhenqi. The 8th level of the Bright Jade Mysterious Art? Li Fuchen thought of a possibility. The Bright Jade Mysterious Technique was an advanced version of the Enchanting Jade Technique. The 7th level was already comparable to the 9th level of the Enchanting Jade Technique. It was obvious how powerful the 8th level would be. How would Li Fuchen know that the reason why Zhao Mingyue was able to advance the Clear Jade Mystic Technique to the 8th rank was because she consumed a cultivation pill, the Clear Jade Pill. As the granddaughter of the inner sect Grand Elder, she had access to such resources. On the opposite side, Zhao Mingyue was even more surprised than Li Fuchen. She had already tried her best but couldn't do anything to Li Fuchen. Instead, she was forced to defend. Be careful. Li Fuchen suppressed his strength to the same level as his opponent and purely used his sword Dao cultivation to suppress his opponent. Li Fuchen, you are strong, but this is still not enough. Zhao Mingyue's sword presence rose abruptly. The qi that covered the wooden sword had a slight change in color. Under the sunlight, it emitted a rainbow glow, as though it was the sunset. Mystic class, low-tier sword art, sunset sword style. Squinting his eyes, Li Fuchen's vision was filled with the sunset sword style. Li Fuchen, against the sunset sword style, you cannot win. Admit defeat now. With the help of the sunset sword style, Zhao Mingyue not only turned the tables, but also suppressed Li Fuchen for the first time. It is the mystic class, low-tier sunset sword style. How did Mingyue Shimi cultivate? A Qi realm martial artist shouldn't be able to execute a mystic class, low-tier sword art, right? Normally speaking, a Qi realm martial artist would find it hard to execute a mystic class, low-tier sword art. But Mingyue Shimi is different. How is it different? Mingyue Shimi has already cultivated the Bright Moon Mystic Technique to the 8th rank. Her Qi is much stronger than a regular 9th level Qi realm martial artist. To a certain extent, her Qi isn't any weaker than those who just entered the Origin realm. Now that you mention it, it does make sense. Dominion Sword Xixiang, Sword Maniac, Sword Tiger, and Emotionless Sword Xixiang from the previous tournament all cultivated a mystic class, low-tier sword art at the Qi realm. You didn't hear about it, that's why you have such doubts. The inner sect disciples in the front row whispered to each other and discussed softly. Below the stage, Yuan Tian saw Zhao Mingyue execute the sunset sword style. He let out a light laugh and wasn't too surprised. So this is a mystic class, low-tier sword art? It isn't much. Li Fuchen changed his sword stance and executed the peak-tier, yellow class, scarlet fire sword style for the first time. Blaze. Like a raging inferno, like a volcano eruption. Li Fuchen's sword stance was unprecedentedly hot and domineering. If Zhao Mingyue's sunset sword style was like rays of sunset, then Li Fuchen's scarlet fire sword style was like a soaring fire wave, incinerating everything in its path. Zhao Mingyue turned pale with fright. Against Li Fuchen's scarlet fire sword style, her sunset sword style was like the winter's snow meeting the blazing sun, melting and disintegrating. Impossible, the scarlet fire sword style is only a peak tier, yellow class sword art? Zhao Mingyue bit on her lips. This child's perception is truly terrifying. He actually cultivated the scarlet fire sword style to the trance stage. He is obviously the second sword maniac. On the rostrum, an inner sect elder exclaimed. It is indeed at the trance stage. How did he do it? Perception is something that is too abstract. It is related to the bone frame, but it isn't an absolute relationship. Back then, Sword Maniac used his 4-star bone frame to firmly suppress the 5-star bone frame Sword Tiger and Emotionless Sword because of his outstanding perception. The layman just enjoys the show, while the connoisseur recognizes the artistry. Be it the outer sect disciples or inner sect disciples, they only knew that Li Fuchen's sword arts were incredible, but they didn't know what rank Li Fuchen's sword arts were at. But the Tsang Lan sect elders could tell with a single glance. Generally speaking, it was considered good for an outer sect disciple to cultivate a peak-tier, yellow-class sword art to the subcompletion stage. Only prodigies could push a peak-tier, yellow-class sword art to the completion stage. But most of the prodigies would only stop at the subcompletion stage, subperfection. Very few prodigies could push a peak-tier, yellow-class sword art to the second completion stage when they were at the Qi realm, the perfection stage. Not to mention the third stage, the trance stage. But Zhao Mingyue's sunset sword style wasn't even at the subcompletion stage. It naturally couldn't be compared to Li Fuchen's trance stage scarlet fire sword style. Sword presence like fire, sword style like fire. After 3 blades, Li Fuchen used a single blade to force Zhao Mingyue off the stage. You win this time. Let's see who wins next time. Zhao Mingyue frowned and left. Li Fuchen's expression was indifferent, as though he did something insignificant. Chapter 76. With the birth of the top 3, it was time for the most crucial moment. As the saying goes, there is no first in literature and no second in martial arts. The outer sect's top 10 disciples were impressive, but no matter how impressive they were, they couldn't compare to the outer sect's number 1 disciple. Every year, the outer sect's number 1 disciple would be recorded and carved on a mountain wall in the outer sect. It was a symbol of glory and strength, and no one could take it away from them. When the lots were drawn, it was Li Fuchen's turn to draw. Yuan Tian, I won't let you get first place so easily. Shang Guanhong took a deep breath, his body tensed up and his muscles contracted. The next moment, a terrifying and overbearing aura burst out, and the wooden sword in his hand was instantly covered with a layer of dense light purple zhenqi. This zhenqi was so strong that it extended all the way from his forearm to the tip of the sword. At first glance, it seemed as if he was holding a light purple mist sword. Yuanteng, take this. Shang Guanhong's footwork was extremely fast, and in just a few blinks of an eye, she had already arrived a few meters away from Yuan Tian. She waved her light purple mist sword, and a fan-shaped sword light burst out, dazzling and resplendent. The 8th layer of the purple extreme profound art. Low-tier profound level sword art, radiant sword art. No one had expected that Shang Guanhong had also cultivated an advanced cultivation technique and a profound rank low-tier sword art. But it was very obvious that Shang Guanhong's sword Dao cultivation surpassed Zhao Mingyue by quite a bit. Zhao Mingyue's mystic class low-tier sword art had yet to reach initial success, but Shang Guanhong's mystic class low-tier sword art had already reached initial success. Other than that, Shang Guanhong's physical strength was also rather terrifying. Before the outer sect disciple competition started, there were insiders who said that Shang Guanhong's physical strength exceeded 7,000 caddies. Now, he was probably even stronger. Shang Guanhong, who had an incomparably strong foundation, unleashed her full power right from the start, slashing towards Yuan Tian. Just as many people were worrying for Yuan Tian, he made his move. The clothes on his right arm were torn apart, revealing his frighteningly strong muscles. Yuan Tian raised his sword, and a peerlessly overbearing sword aura soared into the sky, accompanied by a brilliant sword light. Kacha! Shangguanhong's sword light crumbled in an instant. Following that, the wooden sword shattered inch by inch, turning into countless fragments that shot out in all directions. Shangguanhong was rooted to the spot, unable to say a single word. At this moment, the entire place was silent. Everyone stared blankly at Yuan Tian. Very strong. He was terrifyingly strong. He was freakishly strong. Even the former number 1 disciple of the outer sect, Overlord Sword Lu Wuhuang, was a little moved at this moment. His eyes narrowed, and no one knew what he was thinking. Dominating strength, this is a true heaven's chosen. There is no need to compete in the next match. No matter how strong Li Fuchen is, he is not a match for Yuan Tian. Is this Yuan Tian's strength? In my opinion, a regular first-level Origin Realm inner sect disciple might not even be a match for him. In the outside world, a regular second-level Origin Realm martial artist wouldn't be a match for Yuan Tian. Endless praises and praises came from the mouths of the crowd. As for Shangguanhong, she had long been forgotten by the crowd. Yuan Tian's lips curled upwards. He liked the feeling of being worshipped and revered by others. In the endless starry sky, he wanted to be the only sun, causing the other stars to lose their splendor. Only he alone shone brightly. Li Fuchen, come up. Yuan Tian looked at Li Fuchen and spoke in a clear voice. Li Fuchen let out a faint smile and walked towards the contest stage step by step before stopping 10 steps in front of Yuan Tian. Make your move. I'll give you the chance to make your move. Yuan Tian stood proudly with the wooden sword in his right hand resting on the ground. Such a disgrace, he probably can't even withstand a single blade. Below the stage, Fang Lihai had a face of mockery, as though he could see Li Fuchen's soulless expression. Guan Shui stared at Li Fuchen, trying to read his expression. But she couldn't see anything. If Yuan Tian was said to be extremely confident, like the sun in the sky, radiating brilliance, Li Fuchen was like the vast ocean, unfathomable. Once I make my move, you will definitely give it your all. As he spoke, Li Fuchen drew his wooden sword and with a flash, he slashed at Yuan Tian. In your dreams, Yuan Tian repeated the same move. With a swing of his sword, a domineering sword presence soared into the sky, intending to break Li Fuchen's wooden sword. Boom! A ripple like chi force spread out, causing the clothes and hair of the duo to flutter. On the contest stage, dust flew and formed a dust tornado. Yuan Tian didn't take a step back. Li Fuchen didn't take a step back either. The wooden sword didn't shatter? It really didn't shatter. Shouts of astonishment could be heard. Everyone's interest was piqued. They wanted to see how many moves Li Fuchen could block from Yuan Tian. Interesting. All right then, I shall play with you. Yuan Tian made his move, the wooden sword in his hands spun in a circle. The dense sword presence was like a golden snake scuttling out. It was ever-changing, precise and ruthless, yet it had an indescribable dominance. Peak tier, yellow class sword art, golden snake sword style. The Yang clan had a sword art called the silver snake sword style, which was a high-tier, yellow class sword art. But when compared to the golden snake sword style, it was lacking in presence and wasn't as dominant as the golden snake sword style. Blaze. Vaguely, Yuan Tian seemed to see a huge fireball expanding. His sword momentum instantly melted and disintegrated. Both were peak-tier, yellow-class sword arts, but his golden snake sword style was only at the perfection stage, while Li Fuchen's scarlet fire sword style was at the trance stage. It could be said that the Scarlet Fire Sword style's power was much stronger than what Yuan Tian imagined. Even the spectators didn't have such an intense feeling. Since that is the case, don't blame me. A powerful chi presence exploded from Yuan Tian's body. 8th rank of the Vajra Mystic Technique. Since Zhao Mingyue and Shangguanhong cultivated advanced techniques, Yuan Tian naturally cultivated advanced techniques too. The former two relied on technique pills to advance their technique ranks, but Yuan Tian relied on himself. Although technique pills could save a lot of time, but to fully adapt to it, it required a period of time. But it wasn't so much of a problem for himself, as he was able to fully utilize the power of the first rank technique. Revolving the 8th rank Vajra mystic technique, Yuan Tian's physical strength burst forth. A valiant iron blood chi presence was emitted from his body. It was the chi presence of his physical strength. Lose! Yuan Tian yelled out. The pale golden chi on his wooden sword expanded as he cleaved at Li Fuchen. With this blade, he wanted Li Fuchen to fly off the stage, not giving his opponent any chance. Just in time. Just as Yuan Tian made his move, Li Fuchen's chi presence burst forth. 8th rank of the Scarlet Flame mystic technique. At the same time, Li Fuchen's slightly skinny body swelled up. Stepping out with his left leg, he welcomed Yuan Tian with his sword. Boom! This exchange was like a lightning strike that ignited the flames of the earth. The wooden swords in their hands couldn't withstand this terrifying force and instantly shattered. The broken pieces shot out in all directions as if they were hidden weapons. What? The clash between the two had shocked everyone. Especially Li Fuchen's performance, it was even more shocking. Good. The outer sect Grand Elder's eyes lit up as he cheered loudly. To the upper echelons of the sect, it would never be better to have two tigers fighting. After all, who would complain about having more prodigies in their sect? You dare to conceal your ability in front of me? Yuan Tian was enraged. Li Fuchen replied indifferently, same to you. Catch my sword. Xiao Changfeng took out 2 real swords from nowhere. With a swing, they turned into 2 streams of light that shot at Li Fuchen and Yuan Tian. Don't even think about catching my sword. Chapter 77. Ping, ping, ping. As the two of them fought with bare fists, it was even more violent than a sword fight. Every punch landed on flesh. Clang. 2 swords stabbed into the stage, but the two of them didn't care and continued to fight. Impossible, my 10,000 kilograms of strength can't even suppress my opponent. Yuan Tian got angrier as the fight went on. As the fight progressed, he was on the verge of insanity. Li Fuchen was also wantonly displaying his strength. Yuan Tian was similar to him. Their physical strength, cultivation technique rank, and combat ability were similar as well. Exhilarating. Li Fuchen's eyes were getting brighter. It has been a long time since he went all out in a fight. Suppressing the opponent was exhilarating, but it wasn't satisfying enough. Experts were always lonely. Only when they met a true opponent would the value of an expert be revealed. Crackle. The outer sect's stage was made with the toughest rocks. But under the ravages of the two, the rocks started to crack and fist-sized rocks were sent flying with chi forces. Are these two still humans? Even demonic beasts aren't as violent as them. They are comparable to demons. Everyone held their breaths and watched without blinking. Thunderbolt kick. Yuan Tian's martial arts were more comprehensive than Li Fuchen's. With a yellow class, peak-tier kick art, a crack that was over a meter long appeared on the stage. Storm Flash. When executed by Li Fuchen, the cyclone kick art couldn't be considered a simple, yellow class, mid-tier kick art anymore. It was as though it was fused into Li Fuchen's bloodline and became his instinct. Swish, 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 Li Fuchen's figure darted around, leaving behind a series of afterimages. Just as Yuan Tian was feeling jealous, Li Fuchen attacked. A black mass of leg shadows shrouded over. Even though Yuan Tian was well-versed in both offense and defense, he still couldn't block Li Fuchen's attacks. In just a few blinks of the eye, he got kicked 3 to 4 times and was sent flying. Clang. Yuan Tian's luck wasn't bad, there was a real sword along the way. Pulling out the real sword, Yuan Tian took a deep breath and landed heavily on the ground with a 1,000-kilogram drop. Eat my blade. With the real sword in hand, Yuan Tian's ability increased by an unknown amount. The dazzling sword light was directed at Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen hurriedly retreated. As he retreated, he constantly kicked the gravel on the stage towards Yuan Tian. Li Fuchen, do you only know how to escape? Yuan Tian smashed piece after piece of gravel. With these gravel obstructing, he couldn't catch up to Li Fuchen and couldn't help but say coldly. Unknowingly, Li Fuchen arrived at the side of the other true sword. Clang. Drawing his real sword, Li Fuchen said, "Escape? You overestimate yourself. If I don't defeat you today, I won't rest." Yuan Tian bellowed, the pale golden qi on the true sword surged, turning into a giant pale golden mist sword, cleaving at Li Fuchen. I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Li Fuchen didn't retreat or give way. He wielded the pale red mist sword and brazenly welcomed the attack. Clang. This time, they were real swords, not wooden swords. None of the swords were broken. However, the two swords collided with each other with greater force. Faint golden and faint red mist erupted and dispersed, covering more than half of the arena in an instant. On the battling platform, some fine stones floated up and shot out. Just how profound is the true qi of these two people? The outer sect disciples at the back row were flabbergasted. 5-star bone frame is indeed worthy of being called a 5-star bone frame. Li Fuchen sighed to himself, the battle intent in his eyes intensified. The two of them battled for 300 rounds, but still couldn't determine the victor. But those with discerning eyes could see that Li Fuchen had a greater advantage. Yuan Tian's sword art was dominant, but it wasn't agile enough. But Li Fuchen's sword art wasn't just sharp, it had a bold and unconstrained imagination. Yuan Tian was still limited by the sword art's routine, but Li Fuchen had already surpassed it and added in his own elements. This was the difference in perception. Prairie Fire. On the 398th round, Li Fuchen suddenly executed the finishing move of the Scarlet Fire sword art. Once the sword was brandished, the pale red sword light was like a spark. When it clashed with Yuan Tian's sword art, it instantly exploded and turned into a prairie fire that engulfed everything. Charred holes appeared on Yuan Tian's clothes as he retreated pathetically. This is the moment. Li Fuchen's eyes lit up, the sword in his hand drew a perfect arc from left to right. The pale red arc was like a waning moon, illuminating the stage. Yellow class, low-tier sword art, crescent sword style. Clang. Yuan Tian's sword flew out of his hand and landed below the stage. Do not underestimate low-tier sword arts. In a duel between experts, the timing was fleeting. Low-tier sword arts could save a lot of time to accumulate energy, allowing for an immediate burst. Despicable. Yuan Tian paused for a moment and growled. I won fair and square, how is this despicable? His opponent without his sword was like a tiger without its claws and teeth. Li Fuchen didn't bother to attack and replied indifferently. Yuan Tian replied, with a sword in hand, you cannot defeat me. My apologies, your sword was sent flying by me. If another sword comes, I will send it flying too. You are ultimately not a match for me. Whatever you say. Yuan Tian walked off the stage with a gloomy expression. How can you win like this? Is there any justice in this world? Guan Peng was flabbergasted. Guan Hong and Guan Yen were flabbergasted too. There were too many dumbfounded people. Shengguan Hong, Fong Laihai, Qin Xiaoyu, none of them wanted to believe this reality. He actually won. For a moment, Wu Qingmei felt as though she was dreaming. Everything was too surreal. When she first met Li Fuchen, she didn't even put him in her eyes and only treated him as an outer sect disciple with some ability. Only a short period of time had passed and he had already defeated Yuan Tian. Forget it, after entering the origin realm, there should be some changes. Wu Qingmei didn't want to think about these messy things anymore. Interesting. Zhao Mingyue developed a trace of interest towards Li Fuchen. On the rostrum, the inner sect elders were in a heated discussion. This year's batch isn't bad. In terms of overall ability, it is close to Sword Maniac's batch. Yes, Yuan Tian is on par with Sword Tiger, while Li Fuchen's Sword Dao perception is on par with Sword Maniac. Even though Dominion Sword from the previous batch wasn't bad, but he was the only outstanding one. Let's wait and see. If he is still this outstanding after entering the inner sect, it wouldn't be a problem to give him the identity of an inner sect prodigy. This is a good suggestion. Let's observe first. As the stage was in an uproar, a figure flashed onto the stage. It was Xiao Changfeng. Next, he started to announce the rankings of the outer sect's top 10 disciples and their rewards. There were 2 rewards, contribution points and the qualification to redeem a mystic class martial arts manual. Li Fuchen was first place and was rewarded with 100,000 contribution points. 100,000 contribution points would take an outer sect elder at least 6 to 7 years to earn, which was the envy of others. Of course, outer sect elders earned their position contribution points. In the Tsanglan sect, outer sect elders were considered as the 6th class position and were given at least 15,000 contribution points every year. This way, they would be able to manage the outer sect without any distractions. Chapter 78. Outer Sect Number 1 Disciple, Congratulations. The fact that Li Fuchen became the outer sect's number 1 disciple made all the outer sect disciples flabbergasted, including Zhu Hongxiu. They knew that Li Fuchen was strong, but they didn't expect him to be so strong that even Yuan Tian was pulled down from his high horse. This could no longer be described as a dark horse, but a hidden dragon. The hidden dragon rose from the abyss and shocked the world with a single brilliant feat the second day after the ranking tournament ended. Zhu Hongxiu specially came to Li Fuchen's courtyard to congratulate him. Looking at the exquisite and beautiful Zhu Hongxiu, Li Fuchen laughed. Just an outer sect number 1 disciple, not the inner sect number 1 disciple. What? You still want to become the inner sect's number 1 disciple? Zhu Hongxiu was shocked. Li Fuchen replied, "Why not?" Zhu Hongxiu spoke in a serious tone. If it was any other ordinary bone frame who said this, I would definitely think that he was boasting. But you are different, I believe you. Thank you. Go rest first. I'll go challenge the Tower of Trials. Li Fuchen was just about to head out. Alright, seems like the first rank of the Tower of Tribulations will belong to you. Zhu Hongxiu was indeed a little tired. After bidding farewell to Li Fuchen, she entered her courtyard. Back at the Tower of Tribulations, Li Fuchen had a completely different mindset. Previously, he had the attitude of giving it a try. Now, he wanted to get first place. According to the Tsanglan sect's rules, before being promoted to an inner sect disciple, being in the top 10 of the Tower of Tribulations would also be rewarded with contribution points. The prize for first place was 50,000, the prize for second and third place was 30,000, and the prize for 4th to 10th place was 20,000. Even though it wasn't as much as the rewards of the outer sect top 10 disciples, it wasn't small either. Li Fuchen wouldn't let go of this opportunity. It's senior brother Li. Everyone make way. The current Li Fuchen could be said to be a celebrity amongst celebrities. If anyone from the outer sect said they didn't know Li Fuchen, they would definitely be despised. It didn't matter what Li Fuchen's bone frame was. At the current stage, Li Fuchen was the outer sect's number 1 disciple. He was like the sun in the sky, undefeatable. As for what would happen after becoming an inner sect disciple, no one thought that far ahead. Is this what fame is? Li Fuchen didn't reject this feeling and walked to the front of the crowd. Without the need to ring the Tower of Tribulations, the outer sect deacon in charge of the Tower of Tribulations allowed Li Fuchen to attempt the Tower of Tribulations. What a joke, would the outer sect's number 1 disciple not be able to ring the bell? Entering the first floor of the Tower of Tribulations, Li Fuchen used a single blade to instantly kill an energy demonic beast. The second level was still an instant kill. On the third floor, Li Fuchen expended some energy. Yuan Qi demonic beasts were different from other demonic beasts. They were not made of flesh and blood. If one could not continuously attack their weak spots, they would not die no matter what. Of course, with Li Fuchen's ability, 2 consecutive strikes would be enough to defeat his opponent. As the array patterns on the third floor of the Tower of Trials lit up and then extinguished, the outside of the Tower of Trials was in an uproar. 9 ticks, surpassing Yuan Tian. No wonder he's the outer sect's number 1 disciple. Each time he makes a move, it's getting more and more extraordinary. Yuan Tian must be depressed. He lost the number 1 outer sect disciple, and now he lost the number 1 position in the Tower of Tribulations as well. He lost 40,000 contribution points in one go. Yuan Tian probably won't be satisfied. Walking out of the Tower of Tribulations, Li Fuchen found out that his result was 9 ticks. Li Fuchen nodded to himself as this result wasn't too bad. In this way, the wooden plaque with Li Fuchen's name was hung in the first position on the stone wall, and Yuan Tian was moved to the second position. In less than half a day, The news of Li Fuchen obtaining first rank in the Tower of Tribulations was spread across half the outer sect. In Yuan Tian's courtyard, Yuan Tian was expressionless and the atmosphere in the courtyard was heavy. After a long time, Yuan Tian muttered to himself, "What belongs to me, I will take it back. No one can take it away from me. I am now at the middle stage of the 9th level of the Qi realm. I will need at least a year to progress to the first level of the Origin realm." On top of the fake mountain, Li Fuchen opened his eyes and stopped his cultivation. The breakthrough from the 9th level of the Qi realm to the first level of the Origin realm wasn't a small hurdle. This hurdle could be passed by many, but the time needed to do so was as different as heaven and earth. In general, a normal bone frame would need at least 5 years to pass. Fuan's perception was too weak. It was normal to be stuck at this stage for life. A 1-star bone frame would need at least 3 years. A 2-star bone frame would need at least a year. Only those with a 3-star bone frame could pass the hurdle within a year. But there was a precondition. First, one had to reach the peak of the 9th level of the Qi realm. After all, a lot of time was required to advance from the initial stage of the 9th level of the Qi realm to the peak. The reason why Li Fuchen was so confident was because he was certain that he could attain the 9th rank of the Scarlet Mystic Flame technique within a year. By then, his cultivation speed would increase tremendously. With his current body's toughness, he would be able to withstand the dominance of the Scarlet Mystic Flame technique. With 100,000 contribution points, Li Fuchen had a lot of money on hand. He redeemed another 60 Dragon Tiger pills in one go. He hoped to attain the 3rd rank completion stage of the interception form Dao before he became an inner sect disciple. Either he didn't do it at all, or he would do it at his strongest. Strong enough to crush the 2nd-place disciple. At the current stage, the difference in ability between him and Yuan Tian was very small. Yuan Tian could surpass him at any time, and this wasn't something he wanted to see. The 3rd rank of the interception form Dao was much harder to cultivate than Li Fuchen imagined. It wasn't just about resources, but also the essence of the interception form Dao. Fortunately, Li Fuchen was lacking in everything except for his terrifying perception. 10,500 kilograms. 11,500 kilograms. 11,500 gene. 12,000 kilograms. After 60 body tempering pills were consumed, Li Fuchen's physical strength increased to 12,000 kilograms. Other than the cultivation of the interception form Dao, Li Fuchen's sword Dao was also in progress. Instead of redeeming a mystic class, low-tier sword art, Li Fuchen redeemed 3 yellow class, peak-tier sword arts, which cost him almost 4,000 contribution points. They were the tripart sword style, dripping sword style, and soaring dragon sword style. Li Fuchen didn't want to cultivate 2 high-tier sword arts in one go. He wanted to build a solid foundation. The cultivation of the sword Dao was all about the foundation. A sword Dao without a foundation was like a house without a foundation. It could collapse at any moment. Tripart sword style, 1 blade into 3 blades. Once cultivated to the highest rank, a single blade is enough to poke 3 bloody holes on the enemy's body. Dripping sword style, with the thrust as the main focus, condensing the force. Specialized in breaking body refinement techniques. Soaring dragon sword style, the most dominant and vigorous sword art. But it consumes a lot of qi. The stronger the qi, the stronger the soaring dragon sword style. Each of the 3 yellow class, peak-tier sword arts had their own specialties. Li Fuchen concentrated on cultivating them. Unknowingly, 2 months had passed since the Outer Sect Disciple Tournament. Tower of Tribulations, Yuan Tian's result has increased to 9 ticks. Same as Li Fuchen, tied for first place. There is no such thing as a tie for first place in the Tower of Tribulations. Whoever finishes first will be first. Walking out of the Tower of Tribulations, Yuan Tian clenched his fist after seeing his own result. Just a little bit more and he would have reached 8 ticks. In order to get first place in the Tower of Tribulations, he even suppressed himself from breaking through. 1 week ago, he could have broken through to the first level of the Origin realm. First place, I will definitely get first place. Chapter 79. Three-part sword art, one sword becomes three. Li Fuchen first studied the tri-part sword style. The tri-part sword art was one of the top 10 peak-tier, yellow-class sword arts in the Azure Water sect. It wasn't a simple quick sword art, but similar to the soaring dragon sword art, it required a greater amount of qi. The stronger one's Jin qi was, the more power one could unleash. If one did not have enough Jin qi, the three-part sword art would be no different from an ordinary sword art. Raindrop sword technique, condensing the sword energy into a single point, raindrop pierces stone. Compared to the three-part sword art, the raindrop sword technique did not have so many external requirements. What it required was extreme control. The stronger one's control was, the finer the sword force would be. With a single strike, even metal armor would be pierced through. Soaring dragon sword technique, the sword is like a swimming dragon, the most important thing is sword force. There's an old saying that goes, a strong man can defeat 10 skilled men. The flying dragon sword art consumed Jin qi several times faster than the raindrop sword art and twice as fast as the three-part sword art. Correspondingly, the flying dragon sword technique was extremely terrifying. You could dodge the raindrop sword technique, but you couldn't dodge the flying dragon sword technique. With one sword strike, the sword momentum would first envelop you, making it impossible for you to dodge. Just like the tri-part sword style, the soaring dragon sword style was one of the top 10 peak-tier, yellow-class sword arts in the Azure Water sect. A week later, he achieved initial success in the three-part sword art, raindrop sword technique, and flying dragon sword art. A month later, he mastered the tri-part sword art, the raindrop sword technique, and the flying dragon sword art. 2 months later, the tri-part sword art had reached the perfection stage, the raindrop sword technique had reached the perfection stage, and the flying dragon sword technique had reached perfection. 8 ticks. Unbelievable. Yuan Tian actually completed the reverse and surpassed Li Fuchen. With pressure comes motivation. Previously, Yuan Tian didn't have an opponent, therefore, he was rather lax. But with Li Fuchen's existence, he felt a sense of crisis. His potential has unknowingly been stimulated to the limits. A result of 8 scales is already heaven-defying. I'm afraid no one in the outer sect can surpass this result. There shouldn't be anyone else. At most, his results would be on par with Yuan Tian's. It's impossible to surpass him. On this day, the Tower of Trials area was once again bustling with activity. Looking at his wooden tablet being put back in first place, Yuan Tian revealed a cold smile. Li Fuchen, it is impossible for your results to surpass mine. At best, you will be on par with me. Your title as the outer sects know. One disciple doesn't live up to your name. Muttering to himself, Yuan Tian left the trial tower area. Li Fuchen, your results have been surpassed by Yuan Tian. After receiving the news, Zhu Hongxiu specially came to Li Fuchen's courtyard. Li Fuchen replied, "Oh, had he surpassed it? It's within my expectations." Yuan Tian had a 5-star bone frame after all and was able to cultivate everything quickly. A few months was enough for Yuan Tian's strength to increase by 1 level. Aren't you surprised? Li Fuchen said, "What's there to be surprised about? Alright, what are his results?" 8 scales. 8 scales, not bad. Li Fuchen nodded. If it was 8 scales, he was confident that he could surpass it. Come, follow me to the Tower of Trials. Li Fuchen reckoned that Yuan Tian was about to advance to the origin returning realm. Since he had already offended the other party, Li Fuchen wouldn't show mercy. He wanted the other party to have regrets and advance to the true realm. A short moment later, Li Fuchen and Zhu Hongxiu arrived at the Tower of Tribulations. Look, Li Fuchen is here. Li Fuchen's appearance immediately became the focal point of everyone. I reckon he can't sit still anymore. Everyone knows that Yuan Tian Xixiang is about to advance to the origin returning realm. If he can't surpass him before he reaches the origin returning realm, it will be meaningless. But to surpass 8 scales, it will be difficult. Yes, I wonder what is Li Fuchen's result this time. Everyone held their breaths and stared at Li Fuchen as he entered the Tower of Tribulations. First floor of the Tower of Tribulations, instant kill. Second floor of the Tower of Tribulations, instant kill. Third floor of the Tower of Tribulations, an array pattern lit up and a giant energy wolf appeared. Li Fuchen's body flashed as he brandished his sword at the giant energy wolf. His movement technique was extremely fast and so was his sword speed. As the sword was brandished, 3 sword lights enveloped the giant energy wolf. The giant energy wolf's body flickered with light. Peak tier, yellow class sword art, tripart sword style. The giant energy wolf let out a furious roar and arched its body before charging at Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen constantly executed the tripart sword style to suppress the giant energy wolf. A few breaths later, Li Fuchen's eyes lit up. Xiao. Visible to the naked eye, a pale red glow congealed at the tip of the sword. Li Fuchen thrusted at the giant energy wolf's ear. Peak tier, yellow class sword art, dripping sword style. As the sword entered, the giant energy wolf dissipated. 8 scales, I should have surpassed it. Li Fuchen felt that the speed was much faster this time. It was much faster than the previous time. Exiting the Tower of Tribulations. As expected, seeing everyone's shocked expression, Li Fuchen knew that his result had surpassed Yuan Tian. 7 scales. This time, Li Fuchen's result was 7 scales. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Is he still human? Legend. No matter what happens in the future, Li Fuchen is a legend in the outer sect. No one can surpass him. I think Yuan Tian Shixiang is going to die from anger. There is no first place in literature, no second place in martial arts. There is always a higher mountain. Not taking the praises to heart, Li Fuchen said to Zhu Hongxiu, "Let's go. If this child can break through the bone frame limit, his future will be limitless." Today was a rare occasion for the Tower of Tribulations elder to visit. In the courtyard, a towering tree was forcefully split into 2 by Yuan Tian, sending branches and leaves flying everywhere. Yuan Tian nearly vomited blood. Li Fuchen, you and I are irreconcilable. Yuan Tian's eyes were blood red. Growing up under the halo of a prodigy, he had never obtained second place and could easily obtain first place. He usually looked gentle and polite, but didn't give off a feeling of superiority. Because he disdained to flaunt his prowess. In his opinion, flaunting one's prowess was a very low-class action, a type of false bravado. But at this moment his state of mind had a change. Unwillingness, anger, jealousy, hatred. All sorts of emotions welled up in his heart, causing his mind to be in a mess. Yuan Shixiang, congratulations on obtaining first place again. Wu Qingmei pushed open the courtyard door and walked in. She received the news in the morning but didn't receive the news in the afternoon. Hence, she didn't know that within a day, the first place had changed hands again. Get lost. Yuan Tian glared at Wu Qingmei and roared. Wu Qingmei was shocked, but her face immediately turned ashen. She turned and left without any expression. After leaving, Wu Qingmei asked around and found out that in the afternoon, Li Fuchen surpassed Yuan Tian by 7 ticks. There are no 2 suns in the sky. Since there is Yuan Tian, why is there another Li Fuchen in the outer sect? Wu Qingmei sighed. Laughing bitterly, Wu Qingmei muttered, "Forget it, I have nothing to do with Yuan Tian anymore." Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.